following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bock Score from the old garden on 49th Street in New York City, right in front of Nedick's, just like we're there 50, 60 years ago. We're not, but good part is we have Hal Bock here, and I'm going to ask him to introduce all of us, and if he would be so kind as to tell us what's the score, Hal?
Well, today the score is New England 0 and the Los Angeles Rams 0. But it won't be that on Sunday because they're going to meet in the Super Bowl. How exciting is that?
Absolutely.
If it's the Super Bowl, you know that New England is going to be there because it seems like they're there every year. And I wrote this week about their coach, Bill Belichick. He's he is the most successful coach in modern NFL history. They're going to their fourth straight Super Bowl. And he's a mysterious kind of a guy. You know, he never looks very happy. Looks like he has a stomach ache. He looks like he could use Pepto-Bismol or Tums or something. But he stands there on the sidelines. He grimaces a lot, and he watches Tom Brady operate on this field. And Brady takes them down to touchdown after touchdown and clutch pass after clutch pass, and invariably, I should say, the Patriots seem to win. So I look forward to another Super Bowl this weekend, this Sunday, and I will not be surprised if the Patriots are on top at the end. They have been on top so frequently. Belichick's record over the years is just remarkable. He's won 291 games, 30 of them in the postseason, and that's a lot of games to win for a coach. He's a 5-time Super Bowl champion, and no coach has won more than 4. He's won 5. So you have to take your hat off to Bill Belichick. He's a terrifically successful coach. So I thought we would talk about him, the Patriots, and the Super Bowl this week.
And Tom Brady. What would Belichick have been like without Tom Brady?
It's an excellent question. His first year in New England was not very successful without Tom Brady. At that time, he had Drew Bledsoe. And Bledsoe got nailed in a game against the Jets, as a matter of fact. He got hit and was knocked out of the game. And Brady, who I think was a 6th-round draft choice, also ran in the draft, he was on the sideline, and they put him in, and the rest is history. He's been the best quarterback in the league for several years. Maybe a lot of people call him the greatest of all time. I'm a little hesitant about that because I'm a student of history, and I know that there were quarterbacks like Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman and Otto Graham and Johnny Unitas, and on I could go. So I don't call him the greatest of all time, but there's no question he's been the most successful in the modern NFL.
Hal, it's Al Blumkin. I know I called in sick, but I decided to call in anyway. Do you think when Brady decides to hang it up, Belichick will hang it up also?
I think there's an excellent chance of that happening. Belichick is not a young man. He's in his mid-60s, and he can walk off into the sunset with no qualms. And I think there's an excellent chance that he would do that.
Okay, let's introduce the panel, Hal, to talk to you. Al Blumkin is here, of course. George Case III. David Hubler is not.
Yes, I am.
Oh,
what do you mean?
Are,
of course.
How would I know? Am I clairvoyant or
yes?
Or anyway?
So we have a full house.
Pardon me?
We have a full house.
We do have a full house, and I'm Ralph Tycho. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. This is terrific. We do this weekly, and we go back in time, and at times we stay in the present and even look forward to the future. So I love this. Hal, great theory, great column. I I want to tell you guys I'm not a betting man by nature. I just happened to come across a tip from what I consider to be a reliable source, and he said just take the Patriots, whatever the point spread is, and I'll go with that. I'll just put that out there.
Well, you're looking at two teams. You're looking at two quarterbacks. One guy, Tom Brady, has been here how many times? Half a dozen times?
No, this is his ninth.
He's been down this road a few times.
Yeah.
The other guy is a 23-year-old kid who you could imagine will be awfully nervous on Sunday. I was nervous at 23 when I was writing about this stuff. Can you imagine being on the field and trying to play against a team that's led by a guy who's been here 9 times? So,
boy, I hearken back to the championship game that wasn't even the championship game. It wasn't even called the Super Bowl then. It was just the most important championship game in history, even more so than the '56 Giants and Colts. Why? Because it merged the two leagues. And when you described the kid from Los Angeles, I was thinking of going up against the experience. I was thinking of Joe Willie Namath, and that.
Living off that for 50 years now.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
That's true. Where would the Jets be without that Super Bowl? What would
it'd be where the Lions are, or where the Cardinals are? Yeah. Nowhere.
I wanted to just step in here a minute because you talk about that '69 Jets team. I wanted to just mention Randy Beverly was the cornerback for the Jets and intercepted 2 passes. And Randy Beverly worked for me in the athletic footwear business for many years. So, I had many conversations with Randy about that game.
The sound is cutting out on me. Hello?
Oh, had a terrific game that
The sound is cutting out on me. Are you having that?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it is cutting out.
Ralph, you got to pay the bill.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear anything. I got blank for about
right.
a
Me
minute.
too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this, guys. Let's take a break. Everybody hang up. I'm going to push a button, and we will be back. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. If you'd all hang up and call back, we'll look for a better line. As I say, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The show is Box Score with Hal Bock. We'll be back soon. We are back. We seem to have a better line. Hal Bock, Box Score. We have David Hubler is here. David, identify your voice, if you would.
Yes, good evening. Good evening.
And George Case III is here.
I'm here. Thank you.
Alan Blumpkin.
Hello there, everybody.
You're fighting a sinusitis.
I'm fighting a cold, sinusitis cold. The weather here doesn't help. Yeah.
I can well imagine.
Stay inside, Alan. Don't go out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I am inside. I just feel for the people in Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis. I hope one of these.
We talked earlier.
Inside,
It's absolutely brutal. Midwest is horrible.
Yeah, it's going to get here tomorrow for a couple of days. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what's happening, but like I say, every time something comes up like this, it's a damn good thing there's no climate change, or where would we be then?
That's right.
Okay, let's get back to football. We're talking a little bit about the Belichick-Brady combination. I saw it to a smaller extent, a lesser extent in San Francisco with Bill Walsh and then Montana. And when Montana faded, Steve Young, another great Hall of Famer, comes in, and he played under yet another coach who was terrific in San Francisco, and that was George Seifert, who gets very little credit.
We're fading again. Okay, Ralph, if you want, I'll get off. Maybe it'll be easier for the rest of you.
No, it won't. We seem to have a clear line. This is going.
No, it just happened again.
It just happened again.
It went off again, yeah.
Okay. If you would, then be the first to sacrifice yourself.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Nice of you to come on and contribute. We talked.
Okay, yeah, I wish I could do more, but, I'll see most of you guys Sunday, and Hal, see you next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Hope you feel better, Alan.
Yeah.
All right. Has this improved the line any?
It's hard to tell.
We can all hear each other, but who knows how long it'll last.
That's right.
Okay. George, talk about Randy Beverly and some of the stories that you shared about that.
Well, yeah, I just started to say that, we're talking in Hal's column about the current Super Bowl, but, my recollection was back to '69 when Joe Willie guaranteed victory over the Colts, and they won. And Randy Beverly was the cornerback, had 2 interceptions. I believe Earl Morrow was the quarterback for the Colts. And Randy worked for me for many years in the athletic footwear business. He was our sales and promotions rep up in New York, a terrific guy. And Randy and I had many conversations about that '69 game because, he was part of it. And the coach at the time was a legendary NFL coach. I'm not a football guy. I'm a baseball guy, but certainly remember football and that particular guy by the name of Weeb Eubank.
Yes.
Yeah, he had coached
was a one-time.
He had coached the Colts before that.
Right. Who was the coach of the Colts in that Super Bowl game?
The coach of the Colts was Don Shula.
Shula. I was just going to say, Hal, I think it was Shula. Yeah.
Yeah, Don Shula.
Right, who later went on to coach in Miami.
The Dolphins, when the year they went undefeated.
That's right.
But
Larry Zonka, Jim Kick.
You were talking about Joe Willie, and he had a swagger about him. He had a confidence about him that allowed him to guarantee that victory. He knew he had a good team, and I know he had a good team. I saw that team. I covered that team for quite some time. And so the people who covered the team knew how good the individual players were. I was talking the other day to a friend of mine about this. It wasn't just Joe Willie Namath. It was Matt Snell. It was George Sauer, the great wide receiver. It was Jerry Philbin, the great defensive tackle, and on and on and on. They had terrific players on that team, and Namath knew it. So that's why he guaranteed the victory. Now, Brady never guarantees anything. He just goes out there and methodically picks apart the other team, and they win. The Patriots win. So he's not as, in my mind, he doesn't have the same kind of swagger that Joe Willie had, Joe Namath. But he gets the results. You can't argue with the results.
He doesn't have the swagger after he's won 5 Super Bowls.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, he also sort of takes it. I think he also takes his cue a little bit from Belichick because Belichick is just a low-key guy. I mean, he looks like Hal, like you said, he always has indigestion or something. I mean, he's not flamboyant at all, and Tom Brady, he just goes out and does the job.
You have to admire him. I mean, here in New York, we don't admire him. We don't like him very much for a number of reasons, not the least of which is they keep beating the Jets. But there are also some little question marks about Belichick and Brady. Don't forget Spygate when Belichick was fined a huge amount of money for spying on other teams' practices, and don't forget Deflategate.
Right.
And, Brady was using a football that was like a Nerf ball. I mean, you know, these sort of things are little asides that kind of besmirch their reputations. But you can't argue with success. They won. They win and they won.
There's an underlying thing with Brady. He throws his religious beliefs in there, and that seems hypocritical given the Spygate, the Deflategate, as you say, and people don't like that. A lot of people don't take to that very much. He seems to be a little pious.
Well, he also seems a little full of himself. But again, if you've won 5 Super Bowls, I guess you're entitled to be full of yourself. Here in New York, they call him Pretty Boy because of his. He's got a beautiful model for a wife, you know, and he's a handsome guy. I mean, he's got everything going for him. And so I guess there's a little envy here in New York, but you have to admire him. He's a winner.
Well, you know, Hal, I hate to say this, but in some respects, the Patriots remind me of the old New York Yankees. They just went out and won.
Very true. Very true.
Know?
Now, you were a Yankee fan.
I still am, of course. But, I mean, they may have had, Stengel may have had problems with some of the players. The players didn't like him when he first came on because they thought he was, just over the hill. But they went out and they just won. And they won. And they didn't, they just played the game. There was no bravado, no special trotting around the base paths. How many times did Mickey Mantle just put his head down and run around, after hitting a home run? The Patriots are like that. They just go out, as you say, and just go out and win.
Yeah, but you cite the Yankees, and you just touched on something. You said they never did anything that you could look at them and say, that's not right. You can't do that. Well, the Patriots have little black marks next to them.
Yeah, they do. Yes.
Deflategate and Spygate, those were not pretty moments for that franchise.
No.
So you can't. The Yankees are. There's no question about the Yankees' superiority, the dynasty years, and even after that, and even now, the Yankees haven't won a World Series since 2009. That's almost 10 years ago. 9 years. Well, it's 10 years. This is 10 years. And yet you still look at the Yankees as the quality team, the high-quality team, the team to beat, that sort of thing, because of their reputation, because of what they did for all those many years when they developed my great hatred for them. Because they won every year. So, and the Patriots, I think, have the same image within football. I think a lot of people hate the fact that the Patriots win so often. Well, you can't argue with success, I suppose.
Hey, Hal, I've got a question for you. I'm going to show my ignorance of football, but whatever happened with those 2 scandals? I mean, did the Patriots get fined or what went on? What was the outcome?
The team got fined and Belichick got fined. They also lost a couple of draft choices, I think a number 1 and a number 3.
Is that right? Okay,
nevertheless,
good.
They continue to win, don't they?
Yeah, no, I sure do. Yep.
So,
well, you could compare it then to the other Boston team that's tremendous success, the Celtics. The Celtics, they went out year after year, and even when they were at the bottom of the draft selection, when they stopped all the shenanigans with regional picks and all this stuff,
right.
they had the bottom of and they still won.
And they still won. Well, Red Auerbach was a genius. Red Auerbach was perhaps the best basketball coach of his time.
Sure.
He knew talent, and he collected it. You and I know that he drafted Tom Sanders, Satch Sanders.
That's right.
From NYU, and other people thought, 6'6",
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to make
player.
it, frankly. Yeah, I didn't think he was going to make it.
Neither did I, but he lasted for, 10 years or so.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
He was there the whole time. So
Auerbach had some terrific connections in the small black colleges. I think it was Winston-Salem that brought him the very, very underrated Sam Jones.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
And then also, was it University of San Francisco, which was not a very well-known school.
And
yeah.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell, right.
Right. Let me give you guys a little history lesson about Oakland, California, and Bill Russell. Bill Russell went to a high school named McClymonds, and we all know what he did after that. But McClymonds had an outfield at one time or another that consisted of Frank Robinson, who, by the way, I understand is ailing. I don't know how, but it's all over Facebook, so thoughts and prayers, as they say, good vibes from me for him. But Frank Robinson, Vada Pinson, and Kurt Flood all played at least for 1 year on the same varsity at McClymonds.
That's not fair.
That's
not fair.
That's like the Yankees having Kansas City as a farm club.
Well, yeah,
that's not fair.
It's not fair.
Back in those days. But that's McClymonds High School in Oakland, California. Talk about a dynasty of one sort. And the American Legion coach was a bird dog scout with the Reds and sent all three of those guys to the Reds organization. Flood started out there, as a matter of fact. And that's my McClymonds story.
Mm-hmm.
Went off on Bill Russell. George, do you have a McClymonds story for us?
Well, I have no, I don't. But I've got a Rutgers.
One of your own would be great.
Yeah, I've got a Rutgers University story for you guys, and the fact is that there are 3 starters for the Patriots, all from Rutgers, 2 in the defensive backfield, and then Dron Harmon comes in as the 5th back, and the assistant football coach for the safeties, believe it or not, is a Rutgers guy, Bill Belichick's son, Steve. So, that's my, thoughts on Rutgers. It's certainly not considered a football factory, but there's 14 NFL players, and there's 3 on the Patriots and 1 on the Rams, Sebastian Joseph, all from Rutgers playing in the Super Bowl. So that's a pretty good representation for a school that's really not well known for football.
Absolutely.
So how come their record is so terrible?
That's a good question. It's funny you mention that, Hal, because Bill Belichick, and when Greg Schiano was the football coach at Rutgers and had some really great teams, he and Belichick became very friendly. And a lot of those players, I think it was like 10 or 12 of the players that played for Schiano were drafted in the NFL. And it just so happens that Jason and Devin McCourty were twin brothers, both recruited to Rutgers. Rutgers had a couple of really good years. McCourty, the one McCourty, was playing for the Tennessee Titans, and then he was traded to New England for another Rutgers guy who just went to the Titans. So they still play with 3 on the defensive backfield for the Patriots, and it's just a point of pride for a lot of Rutgers people because the record the last couple of years has just been horrible. But here's some really good representation in the NFL.
I think the mistake that Rutgers made was moving into the Big Ten.
Money-wise, it's good for them, but trying to compete with Ohio State and Michigan State, Penn State, it's almost impossible.
Well, even Maryland is having a tough time competing in that.
Yeah, they are.
Yep. They are. They certainly are. I'm not thrilled that Syracuse is in the ACC either, because they got to play Duke and they got to play North Carolina every year, and that's a little problem. Although they beat Duke, the Orange beat Duke the other night, so that was good.
Yeah, no, that was a big win for Syracuse to beat Duke down there.
Sure was. But then they lost to Virginia Tech, and that really tested my loyalties. I didn't know who I was rooting for that night. My son said, "You got to root for Virginia Tech. Your grandson is in Virginia Tech. Syracuse is in your rear view mirror." So I said, "Okay, I'll root for Virginia Tech."
Yeah, right.
That's a good way of putting it. But
well, you know.
Well, Syracuse at one point was a real football powerhouse in the early 60s. I mean, they were a tremendous team.
But they've fallen on hard times until they got this latest coach, Dino Beavers, I think his name is. And he's turned that program around, and they won a bowl game this year, and they went, I think, 9-3. So he's turned that program around. They have good things coming at Syracuse.
Yeah, you're right, Hal. At one time, Syracuse was a national power. They had Jimmy Brown, and they were terrific, and they were playing up there. And Ben Schwartzwalder was the coach. I mean, they were a great football school. And then and Floyd Little, he followed Brown, but then he had that horrible illness. And I don't think he even played in the NFL because
no, that wasn't Floyd Little. That
was Ernie Davis.
I mean, you're right. Ernie Davis. I said Floyd Little. Floyd Little played there too, but Ernie Davis is the one. You're right, absolutely.
Yeah, who died?
They had Jim Nance also, who played for New England in the pros. He was a pretty good fullback. At that time, Syracuse had a terrible basketball team. They've done a complete reversal. Now they have a terrific powerhouse basketball team because they've got that new big arena. Well, it's not new anymore, but they've got the arena. Right. And what was it? Sholkoff Field? I forget the name of the Syracuse outdoor football stadium. They were the powerhouse, and I remember NYU played Syracuse in Madison Square Garden. And NYU rang up a score of 130 points. It was one of the worst defeats in any college game at the Garden. I mean, they were just hapless. They were just, they didn't belong on the same court with NYU. But now, of course, as a powerhouse basketball team, they're ranked just about every year.
I think, David, I think that started when Syracuse, with the Big East. The Big East became such a great basketball conference.
Right. Yes.
Syracuse was right there. And, of course, now being in the ACC, I mean, continues on. But you're absolutely right. I mean, Syracuse went from being a major football power to nothing in basketball to a major basketball power with very little in football.
Everything is secular. It runs in cycles. Yep. Except for the New England
I want to pay homage to the
cycles.
great Dave Bing from Syracuse. Dave Bing goes on to be a really terrific businessman
and a mayor.
Millionaire.
He was a mayor of Detroit, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the mayor, a real credit to Syracuse. Let's put it that way.
And then after Bing, they had Louis and Bowie. Louis Orr and Roosevelt Bowie. That was a great combination for them as well.
I remember those guys too, yes. And let's not forget how great Brown was in not only basketball, but
in lacrosse.
Yes,
not
lacrosse.
only football, but lacrosse and basketball as well.
I had a great
Jimmy
story about
Jimmy Brown is considered he's considered possibly one of the greatest lacrosse players of all time. I mean, when you look at him when he was running over people with football equipment on, you can imagine what it was like to get run over by him with just a lacrosse, little shoulder pads, and that was basically it.
Well, I had a friend whose older brother was at Dartmouth when Jimmy Brown was at Syracuse, and Dartmouth had a really good lacrosse team too. And the two of them came out, and of course Jimmy Brown had not achieved the fame that he subsequently did, but he came out to play lacrosse with them. And the story was that the coach or several of the players complained to the referees that he was wearing shoulder pads, and they made him take off his shirt, and he wasn't wearing anything except Jimmy Brown.
That's a good story, David.
It's true. Yeah, my friend's brother was there at the time, and he told us that story. He was at Dartmouth, and I always loved that story because it showed what an amazing athlete he was.
My favorite Jimmy Brown story, he was eating over in the athletic cafeteria, and there was a new waitress who didn't recognize him. And she comes over to him and says, this is for the Syracuse athletic department only. And he says, I am the Syracuse athletic department. And he definitely was. No question about that. Hey, guys, it's been a good show. Sorry for the technical problems. I think we may have solved it. We may have one more person on the line than it can take. Because as far as I can hear, we haven't had any cutouts since Alan left. Am I correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Start with you, George Case.
No, I really wanted to, again, compliment Hal. I think, to get a column for the Super Bowl, which this is Super Bowl week, and it's perfect. I mean, we're all baseball guys, but, football is here, and we're going to watch the Super Bowl and enjoy it. And Hal, I enjoyed your column on Belichick, and we'll watch and see if he picks up another win.
All right. David Hubler.
Well, I hate to throw a damp rag on. I probably will not watch the Super Bowl. I don't have the patience to sit there and spend 4.5, 5 hours watching commercials between plays. And since I don't have a rooting interest in either team, I'll probably watch a movie or something. I'm not a big Super Bowl fan because I think the hype, for many years, the hype was much, much bigger than the game itself. If you recall, a lot of those games were routes. Lately, they've been fairly evenly matched. But this nonsense with the halftime show and all that garbage, I don't go for that.
You mean David? You won't watch the 6-hour pregame show?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have my set turned on at 10:00 in the morning. Oh yeah, no, I won't be. The best thing about the Super Bowl is that it's 2 weeks from spring training.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
You robbed me of my line. I was going to close by saying, Super Bowl, my butt. The pitchers and catchers are reporting in a couple of weeks.
Right.
That's where it's really at, right, guys?
You
bet.
bet.
Absolutely the best time of the year.
These are the warm-up acts,
That's right.
The Super Bowl is the warm-up act.
Hey, maybe we can all hitchhike down to Florida for a couple of weeks.
Oh, I'd love it.
Get out of this Arctic vortex we're in.
Yes.
Let's wait for spring break.
Here's an idea.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Good show. Thank you. If you're listening out there, Hal Bock, Bock Score, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. David Hubler was here. Alan Blumpkin was here earlier. George Case III. Me, I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back before you know it. Adios, everybody.
Yep. Bye-bye, everybody.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.